Welcome to the Redeemed Vision podcast, where we bring sight to the blind and freedom to those enslaved by our pornified culture. Here, we dive into hard but important topics, such as pornography, sexual identity, true freedom, real love, and living marriage well. Go deep with us as we uncover what redeemed vision means for each of us living in the world today. Come to know yourself, the power of redemption through Jesus Christ, the joy of laughter, and how to live in gratitude and wonder. This is Redeemed Vision.
Welcome to another edition of the Redeem Vision podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pokorny. I'm the founder of Freedom Coaching, where you can find all about the work that we're doing at freedom-coaching.net. Before I forget, please make sure to click the little bell, to ring that bell, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this work because we believe that the world desperately needs the message of the Redeemed Vision. Of being able to see each other as God sees it. It's that one vision that satisfies, it's that which allows us to connect with others, to create communio with others. And if you feel so impelled to want to support our work, you can head over to the website. Again, it's freedom-coaching.net, and you can make a donation there. We're honored to have your support in all the work that we're doing. So today I have a very exciting discussion here with a man who does need an introduction, because I think he's a hidden gem for the world that I stumbled upon his work actually on Facebook. And our guest today is James Jasper. And he is an artist. So I like to say I'm an aspiring newbie artist, shall I say, to a degree. This man has been involved with this for many years. James professionally studied at the Art Institute of Chicago. I believe he graduated there in 1996, where he studied fine art painting. Has done many projects, including murals in Naples, Florida. He's been to Seattle doing commissioned to do scenic artwork there. He has his hand also in digital artwork and also doing sculpting on computer. We're gonna dig in more what is that all about. But he's also designed some projects for churches, such as side altars and things like this. So for those of us in the Catholic world and Christian world who are concerned about the ugliness of society and knowing that there's something transfixing about beauty and how beauty is a calling to something deeper. James, I believe, has his finger on the pulse there, and he's also a great lover, shall we say. He's been married for over 26 years, has 6 beautiful children, and it's an honor to have James on the Redeem Vision podcast. James, how are you today?
Hi, good, thanks.
Fantastic. Wonderful to have you here. So obviously you heard the little introduction there that was there, and art has been clearly a part of your professional life. I want you to take me back here, if you would, kind of growing up. Where did art, like maybe some of your earliest memories with art, what captured your heart regarding all the worlds of art, and let's just start there. What some of your earliest memories of capturing are there to realize, maybe I have a gift for this?
Well, I mean, my earliest memories weren't based on, I didn't even start practicing until I was about 14 or 15 that I start to learn to draw. But I mean, growing up in Europe, my dad would always take us to Catholic churches. He's still an ex-Catholic. I pray for him, but my dad was always drawn to the beauty of these Catholic churches, and you go to any, even a country church in Europe, and you're just overwhelmed. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say otherwise. I mean, it's very inspiring, and that's why we've always had 2,000 years of this gorgeous artwork. So. I mean, there was
Absolutely.
that.
And
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was that, and then I was fortunate enough to go to all these great art museums in Europe. So, yeah, both my parents love the arts.
Wonderful. And at what age did you go to Europe?
5.
At 5 years of age, and you were in Europe until when?
Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. Oh, no, that's probably 2. Probably the first time I went, I was probably 2.
Okay, 2 years of age, and you're in Europe for how long?
Back and forth. I mean, my dad was in the Air Force, so we traveled a lot.
Okay. Because obviously well, maybe it's not obvious to some people, but there's clearly a difference between European culture and American culture, art, especially the sprawling churches, shall we say, are very frequent in many places in Europe, whereas it wasn't. Where you don't find those in many places in America, and so growing up for yourself was your father was not you were raised Catholic by your mom?
No, I wasn't raised Catholic at all. I married a Catholic girl, so
Okay.
that's how I was able to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
my parents are very much of the 1970s generation. So, I mean, they went to Catholic churches as often as they went to non-Catholic churches, and I mean even if you have the Novus Ordo today, I mean they basically are trying to tell you that, oh, it's all the same. Why not? You have this religious indifferentism. So, I mean that's a product of the 60s and 70s.
sure it is. And so within this whole thing, so what was it that would you say? Because you said there was nothing going on. You didn't really get into art until you were 14 or 15. What was it that made the change for you?
Desire to do so. I mean, I just had this overwhelming desire to draw. I
Great.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't. I always did it a little bit, but I didn't. I didn't really pursue. Craftsmanship. I didn't really start pursuing craftsmanship till I was about 14.
Okay. And from that here, your it was drawing that started out there. And when did this shift? Because from the bit that I've seen from your Facebook page, and that's where I would invite you to check out James's work, is on his Facebook page, because there's tremendous examples of physical type of work here. So when did it move for you from the physical? From drawings over to using wood or using doing sculpture, any of that?
Oh well, I mean, I started. Well, painting's a very difficult medium. I mean, most people don't go past drawing or say watercolors. Watercolors are like color drawings, of course. But when you start working with like actual physical paint, um, you're opening up a whole can of worms and problems that you have to solve and understand.
Mm.
So I mean, I started doing that at 18, but I did it so badly. Uh, then more, from 18 to 21 or 2, I was doing it really poorly, and then my wife and I rented a 2-bedroom apartment, and we had a studio, and then from there it's just practice. I mean, that's all you do, paid or unpaid. You just work at it every day. So.
Absolutely. And for those who are just kind of tuning in here, I'm speaking with James Jasper, who is a working artist, which many other who are aspiring to be artists are probably having a little bit of jealousy on that front. But from this James, just like in our world today, one of the things that we talk about here at Freedom Coaching at the Redeemed Vision podcast is how beauty will save the world. Right? It's been said by Dostoevsky, and the beauty itself is useless because it's not functional. But without beauty, the soul shrivels up and dies. That's one of the things that we like to teach, and so one of the things that I think our world struggles with, and why there's such confusion over art is definitions, shall we say, that we don't want to define things because it begins to limit what is and what is not art. So what is and what is not something. So just so we can get into a deeper discussion here, how would you define art?
Okay, so there's a very precise definition that I've heard. I didn't make this up. But I almost never heard it. I've only heard it once, but it's actually correct. The definition of art is it's quite simply, it is an expression of the human condition. So it doesn't matter what you're talking about. If what you're looking at, listening to, whatever, if that's how you would judge whether or not something was successful. So versus, I mean, basically think of it as using like a trumpet. I mean, a musical instrument. I don't play musical instruments. Now I can go to the store and I can buy a trumpet and I can blow in it and make a sound, but I'm never going to sound like Miles Davis. So, if you lack proficiency or craftsmanship and all the work and everything else, you're never going to achieve it, because you're never going to be able to. You got to have craftsmanship. But regardless, it's about an expression of the human condition. So, I mean, even with poor craftsmanship, it happens. But that's really what it is. I mean, it doesn't matter if you or I pick up paint. I mean, I can pick up a jar of paint, smear it on the canvas, and the same as anyone else. It's not art, I mean, unless I was actually able to convey something. Sometimes that happens. But I mean, yeah.
So that's great. So an expression of the human condition. I think this is critically important here, and I'll take that and I'll move it to a different direction in just a moment. So obviously this has been a life's work, a life's journey, shall we say, at least from 14 to 15.
No, 47 years. It was. Yeah, there's an old story with Picasso. He's sitting in France and he's painting something, and someone walks up and says, "Hey, can you do me a drawing?" So he does this drawing, whatever. It says it's $50,000. The guy's like, "What? It took you 5 seconds to do that drawing?" He's like, "No, it took my entire lifetime to do that drawing."
There you go. Yeah, you're pouring all of yourself into it. It's kind of like on another medium of art, those who create movies. A lot of people just take movies in, not realizing everything that goes into the creation of those movies, right? And especially as an artist, you're sometimes literally blood, sweat, and tears goes into that work there. So, James, obviously, with your work, you are not just. I know that in your background that you shared off when we weren't recording, I learned a little bit that you've obviously done house painting to pay the bills. We all do what we. Right, we got to do.
It tastes better. Yeah. In fact, I prefer to do it most of the time because I have bills to pay, and that's Yeah. I mean, at some point, if you try to make a career 100% as an artist, you're not going to be able to pay the bills. I mean, you look at any successful artist, there was a patron, and nowadays, if you look at a male or a female artist who seems to do a career where they do that full time, like, oh, this guy over here or this girl over here, she does it full time. Well, I can guarantee their spouse pays the bills. All right, it's few and far between. Otherwise, your odds, you and I have better odds of getting into the Super Bowl than we do of getting wealthy in the arts.
I understand. So clearly, you're not doing this specifically for money, except for the house project, shall we say, right, to pay those bills. So let me ask this point, because the work, and I encourage all of you to check out James Jasper's Facebook page. And we'll put the link in the show notes. This is where he's demonstrated some of his work, and it's beautifully constructed. Much of it is religious in nature here. How would you say that your faith has gone and inspired and influenced your art in the creation of various projects?
How? I'm not sure. In order to do anything, like say Thomas Aquinas, the statue, or the Beatitudes, honestly, it takes, you got to meditate on the subject matter. So the more you think about something, the more you're going to know it and understand it, and the better you'll do. I think God had spoken to one of the doctors of the church, or some religious person, and said as far as St. Thomas Aquinas. This is just, obviously this is second-hand information, but, this saint related that the reason that St. Thomas Aquinas was so good was not simply because he studied, which he did, but he prayed more than he studied. And that's why he had better comprehension and insight.
So I'm going to ask you a challenging question that you might not be able to articulate. And if you can't, that's okay. As you prepare for, let's say, because right now, the most recent project that you're publishing is about the Beatitudes.
Oh, yeah.
And so as you're going in to prepare to do these, what was the medium of those? Is it wood or what is it?
So the stuff that I published, that's a digital render. So what I did, and on that one though, it's important to give my wife the credit because she developed the concept for 8 or if not all 9 of them. I'm not sure, but definitely the main 8. And I simply sculpted it on the computer. And then for the North American Martyrs Parish, I carved it out with a CNC machine, and and then we gold leafed it, and it was just for a running border on the side of the nave. But I mean, basically the process is always the same if you want to do it correctly. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing, if it's just a simple portrait. You break it down into parts. But I mean, the main thing you want to do is you want to say, okay, this is the subject matter. All right, was Saint, Thomas Aquinas will do. So Saint Aquinas. What do we know about him? What are his attributes? What are his characteristics? How did he look? How's he depicted in art? You can still reference all the old stuff. So I mean, he wrote books. I mean, he's known for the Summa. Okay, he's holding the Summa. He's going to hold a pen. He was inspired by the Holy Spirit. Okay, I mean, it pretty much. I mean, when you break it down, things down to what they actually are, where you're not actually trying, it's kind of like you're trying to do anything. When you try to do something, you're putting your own will. I don't know. You're approaching it from a different way. Whereas if you simply look at something at a little bit of a distance and just state things for what they are, it's easier to. It's like compositing an image. You're just sort of putting it together, almost like a collage, and then from there you just make adjustments.
It's beautiful, and that's the exterior, obviously. But what I would like to see if this is even you're able to articulate this, that process of you've done some studies before even getting into studying the material, or even maybe as you're studying the material, there's a process of your own prayer that goes there, right? Inviting God, inviting the Holy Spirit into that discussion. How would you say that for you? Again, this may be very difficult to articulate. That's why I may be asking an impossible question. How do you see? How does God speak to you in there? Is it color? Is it because artists? I've heard
you
stories
just have
of
ideas.
that's one.
No,
Yeah,
you just have ideas. That's all. You'll have an idea. I mean, that's kind of how the spiritual world works in a certain sense. I mean, it's not. I mean, someone might call it, a vision or this or that. I visualized. I had a vision about this or that. Well, what you had is a mental picture that's formed in your imagination based on memories, and I mean, mental pictures can come from multiple sources. But if it's divinely inspired, it would, then that's how, it's not like you're going to hear words. It's not like you're going to see flashes of light, or you might visualize color, you might visualize something else. I mean, for me, like if I'm doing a statue of a saint, I contemplate, say Philomena. Well, okay, the circumstances of her life. It's no different than, and I mean, this is where I've improved over the years because I've spent more time in contemplative prayer, which is definitely based on the Rosary. At Rosary every day for the past 5 years, religiously. But I mean, that's like Rosary is like that gateway one to contemplative prayer, and once you start doing that, that's where you're receiving help. And then that's where you'll have artists who say, no, it's I didn't do that. That was that's where it's more of a gift, because it is a gift. Whereas when I do it otherwise, I make lots of mistakes otherwise. So, and you just won't see those pieces of artwork because they're so horrible. But yeah, it's more of contemplating a given saint.
Beautiful. And in the world in which we live in, especially in the Catholic world, or maybe it's the busyness of life, that notion of as a Catholic artist, okay, how critical to their formation and creating not just art that's going to be purchased by a church or hung up for display. How critical would you say that their prayer life needs to be in the formation of those pieces?
Absolutely critical.
Sure.
Yeah, just
Uh,
it's absolutely critical. I mean, the more time, the more accustomed I have been to, a contemplative lifestyle when I'm working, work and pray. I mean, I would do it even when I'm painting houses. You'd say you're just contemplating scripture, but I mean, it's the same for artwork, and even more so. And the more that you pursue that, the more that you understand the absolute necessity for it. It's like it doesn't matter if all you do is if you're just a housewife and you never nothing much and it's boring. And so the Virgin Mary was a housewife, and all she did was contemplate God. That's what it's all about. So that's where you're going to have better comprehension, and that's where that's the grace of faith. Faith isn't knowing that God exists. That's rightly ordered reason. Faith is knowledge of God, and that's something that God gives us. He gives us faith. So you got to think about Him if you want to, you know.
Amen. If you want to go deeper into where He's calling you to be in His work. So, and again, we're talking with James Jasper here, and his very great gift of an art as an artist, but also the gift to the church. And that's one of the things that's also intriguing to me is your wife. Her background's art as well, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Did the two you knew her as an artist when you met her? I assume.
Yeah, we met at the Art Institute of Chicago, fell in love, moved down to Florida, got married, all that.
And now they
Yep.
make beautiful masterpieces, including their children. So on that level, how do you again, some couples will struggle with working together, and I imagine that obviously as male and female we are different, right? And I assume this obviously comes to play in your marriage, but obviously in the art world that the two of you are creating. So how do you merge? So A, I would say, is does she have a different style of art than you do? And then B, if that's true, how do you merge those together? How do you work those together?
Yeah, well, we're both into realism, and we both have the same goals in mind. But her hand is different than mine. I mean, that's inherent and intrinsic. I mean, you can't. It's like a signature. I mean, trying to forge somebody else's signature, you might get a similar likeness, but the author of the signature would be like, that doesn't look like mine. Anyway, but we got lucky early on doing murals together and decorative painting, which is real silly stuff, super silly, and for wealthy people, But it's just making wealthy people's houses nice. But I mean, it came to pass where one of us we'd both go to a meeting with a client, male or female, didn't really matter. And the client would be talking to both of us, but it's like one of us would sort of be inspired or have a better understanding of what the client was looking for or talking about. There were a number of times where I'm like, I would sort of make mention of something, and she's like, "Oh, no, he means this, or she means this." It's like, "Oh, okay." So Susan would sort of start taking the lead on that. So one of us would basically take the lead on the project, and then when we're working on a project, it's like, she would work on, say, one area, like, all right, so maybe she would paint the tree, and then I would paint, you know, the foreground or something. So you just work on different areas that way. Then there's not really any conflict, and then you just make sure your colors, you're using the same color palette, and it's fine.
I love it. I love it very much so. And one of the things that I encourage all those who are listening to the podcast or watching it, do check out. I think they're there. Correct me if I'm wrong. The North American Martyrs in Edmonds, Washington. You and your wife were commissioned to work on the high Gothic main altar and the sanctuary space. Your wife was I believe the main artist on the crucifixion scene.
Yeah, she did that. She did that entirely herself. Yep.
Amazing. Truly inspiring on this. And just a couple more questions as we'll close this part of our interview, and we're going to do something kind of different for people to get to know you a little more. Is how have you seen the use of art? Or maybe the better question is, are your kids naturally gifted in the art world as you guys are? And then in your work as husband and wife, as father and mother, bringing your natural gifts and maybe supernatural gifts of art into your education of your children? How have you seen that impact your children and their growing up, their cultivation of the virtues?
Okay, I think I caught 5 questions. So uh, I mean, well, the first one would be art in general. Uh, but I mean, as far as the kids, yeah, one or two of them have a natural. My oldest has a really good eye and very good sensibility, and then one or two of the other ones have interest in it, but more like a hobby interest. But then again, I mean, when you're talking about someone who's like 8 or 10 years old, you know, um, and then yeah, I mean, my wife homeschools, so we incorporate art. We'll do art related stuff, but only like periphery. I mean, it's you still have to have solid academics. So we do, Elizabeth Ann Seton, and then then you do projects with mom or dad where you're doing things and just. I mean, if I was a farmer, I'd teach my kids how to shoe a horse or something. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, as far as what was the first question again? As far as the changes in the art?
Looking at how you've seen with your wife and your natural abilities, how have you seen that impact their own development as human
Oh,
beings?
okay. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's they definitely know how to look at things a little differently than superficially. They pay more attention. In fact, my kids are better. Say my two oldest are really adept at looking at symbolism in paintings or artwork that I generally just like go past. I mean, sometimes I can be superficial and it's like, oh, okay, there's an
Mhm.
anchor in the picture and other stuff. I don't pay attention. I'm focusing on the figure. Whereas one of my kids might say, oh, I think that this, I bet this symbolizes such and such. And it's like, oh yeah, good point. Um, so I mean, when you get accustomed to looking at a painting is like a visual representation of like several icons. Like you look at a stop sign, that's an icon or this or that. So paintings use those. It's just a tool or technique that you put in a painting. So you start to look at that as such, and then you start to look at things in general or life or walking around or whatever. You look at the symbolic nature of different things, and then you're going to have a broader perspective and also um, a less superficial view. I mean, I think that's kind of the goal. Oh, it's on mute.
Thank you very
Oh,
much,
there.
James. So in the pornified culture that we live in, that where the body is not respected, where we oftentimes are, what we're trying to do in our work and freedom coaching is to help people to see the human person well. For those who have struggled with issues of pornography or not being able to see life in a way, how would you say that art, and particularly religious art, can help to bridge that gap?
Yeah, I mean it's I mean as far as how religious art does that, I mean it's a different question. But I mean as far as a human being, man or woman, but men are more visual, so I think men have more problems with this. I mean, you definitely want custody of the eyes, custody of the senses, but I mean, walking around, I mean, we train our boys to have custody of the eyes because, I mean, in Seattle, I mean, whew, some of the way that
Hmm.
women dress, it's like they shouldn't be dressing like that, even if, regardless of what their figure looks like. I mean, it's just like you shouldn't really be dressing like that in any case. It's not that. Oh, anyway, but I mean, you need custody of the eyes, uh, and also discernment. But I mean, so one of the ways that you can get past that is, identifying and being more sympathetic with what you're looking at. When you look at someone, look at them as a human being or a person
Mm.
who has the same feelings and thoughts, emotions as you do. So for instance, if you see a beautiful woman who's a model for a painting, you got a beautiful model who's modeling, I don't know what, like you're doing a portrait of a beautiful woman, however. Um, you need to think of her in a less superficial way because otherwise, if you're just looking at her only for her physical beauty, well, then that's gonna go towards lust and eroticism and so forth, and then you're objectifying a woman. Whereas the successful paintings, like if you have a successful painter, say 150 years ago, who Bouguereau and several other ones did them, where they're nudes or partial nudes, but they don't. There's nothing erotic about. There, you see the lovely nature of femininity, for instance. I mean, you might see, a little bit of a boob hanging out or something, or the arms and legs heavily uncovered, but it's more of to express like a natural beauty and a mood rather than say just a physical beauty that's where the only purpose of that is just to inspire lust. So, I mean, yeah, it's something you actually have to pray for as well. I mean, it's always been a problem throughout since Adam and Eve. I mean, Adam had the same problem. I mean, it's very easy to look at a woman and be like, so I mean, it's something you have to fight against, and also you have to pray for. You pray for that grace, ask God to help you, and then you also. But I'd say the biggest thing to work on that you can do yourself is to contemplate, say, the female form in terms of that person. Look at the face, look at the eyes, look at who she is, rather than certain parts.
Absolutely. No, so for those, just to kind of recap what James just said here, very important. I think there certainly is a place for custody eye. We need to learn how to see, learn how to, if we've got to look away, then do that. But it's more also learning how to see the person. And that's going to take a deep interiority of being able to recognize, where is God moving my heart in this place. And I think this is also where the importance and the power of art comes in, is that in a certain sense we can say the body itself is never pornographic. Is oftentimes the way in which the body is portrayed, and this is why I think your definition of art earlier is very important, because there's a lot of false notions of art that come out there. We want to say that anything up on a screen or anything that is posted in a picture is art, and that's not necessarily true. So even in the midst, can we have this discerning eye through a movement of our heart connected with God that allows us to see the truth of the person that's being portrayed here, even if they're not being portrayed in the best way. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's just, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but that's just because of, say you've got an oil painting, life-size oil painting of a woman scantily clad or whatever, or dress how, it doesn't matter. But I mean, what's the painting of? Well, it's just a painting of a beautiful woman. I mean, that's all I see on Facebook or social media or all everywhere else. Most paintings, it's just a superficial painting of a beautiful woman sitting there or standing or whatever. That's not art. That is truly not artwork. Even if they have realism, even if they've accomplished realism or this or that, no, you haven't said anything. That's not an expression of the human condition. You're just trying to photograph. It's like a photograph. I mean, it's without subtlety or purpose, or it doesn't say anything.
That is beautifully said, James. Very, very grateful for your insights here on this. And one last thing I would say is, especially to those who do have a gift for art, who are looking to go into the realm of Christian and Catholic art and to create those elements and create projects and beauty. What pieces of advice, maybe 1 to 2 pieces of advice for aspiring artists, what would you say to them?
First and foremost, I say don't do it. No, I don't recommend it. So having said the very first point, which is the most important point, the second point is also an answer, but it's to those people who have to do it. So, that's different. I mean, there's doing it as a hobby, but then there's doing it where you just really have a need to do it more and more frequently, and you have goals and so forth. Now, I still say don't do it, but if you have to do it, you want to have good, strong foundations. And number one, I mean, it's like any other business or anything, self-discipline. And the self-discipline is hard in the art field, because what you do as an artist is extremely enjoyable. But to run a business in the arts, you absolutely have to have self-discipline. I mean, that's why the failure rate's so bad. It's not only because bad craftsmanship and you're putting out a bad product. it's because you're not doing the business paperwork, you're not doing the emails, you're not doing proposals, you're not contacting everything to run a business. But yeah, you wanna make sure you have solid foundational skills. And yeah, give you some links, like New Masters Academy. It's just nma.com or .org. New Masters
Great.
Academy. There's nothing. It's clean. It's inexpensive, like 25, 35 a month, and you'll get the best academic training. So
That's fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. And so to make the distinction, obviously, if you're going to dabble in this, don't try to make a living out of this, right? But if
Yeah, we should all have hobbies. I mean, you definitely need to have good hobbies. That's life. But if you're thinking to make money from doing that, I'd say think again.
yeah, exactly. But if you're on fire, if you're burning with this, let that passion come there. But like James has done to take care of his family, you may just have to paint houses, and that is a very respectful and respectable work as well. Very important. So, James, thank you very much for your time here. What I want to do is just shift the discussion very, very briefly as we close our podcast. This is a little less. I don't know if our interview was intense or what, but this is a little less. These are going to be just a series of, we call it the 12, and we're looking at what's your take on the 12. And these are just 12 questions off the top of your head. Don't overthink them, and just so we can get to know you a little more. And then we'll close up here. If you can let people know exactly where they can get to know more of your work going forward from there. Okay. Yep. So here's our 12. Number 1, peanut butter, creamy or crunchy?
Creamy.
2, if you could be any Star Wars character, who would you be?
Boba Fett, probably. I don't know. He was my favorite.
Boba, definitely. 3, what's your desert island food?
Pizza. No, actually, I'm sorry, sandwich.
Sandwich. What kind?
Yeah.
What kind of sandwich?
Well, that's why I picked sandwich, because you can have. There's so many types.
Smart. Very smart.
I'm playing the gray area on that one.
I'll take it. Number 4, beer or wine?
Wine.
Which kind?
I don't drink anymore.
Okay, all right.
But Werthermer was a nice one. It's like a white Riesling. I don't know. It's really nice.
That's tasty. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Number 5, your most memorable Christmas gift you received when growing up?
Green bicycle.
Nice. Very good. A Schwinn?
Yeah, I think it was a Schwinn. Yep.
Very good. Those are good. The wide handlebars. I think I had one growing up. I had a blue one. Number 6, what's your bucket list country or city?
Country? I don't know. Maybe something like Syria would be neat because the archaeology. Country, I don't know. China would be nice. I don't know. There's too many.
Okay. 7, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I don't know. I don't know. Grace.
Perfect. Grace. I'll take it. 8, have you seen The Chosen?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's your impossible question to follow up on that. What's your favorite episode?
Oh, I didn't watch that many episodes. My daughter loves them. I don't know. I liked, as far as watching it, I would like parts of them more than the whole episode in particular. So.
Sure. Is there a particular part that moved you?
I don't know. Like the calling of the apostles, like Matthew was a nice one. I mean, I don't remember which episode that was, but I like the circumstance. I like the way they portrayed the circumstances of that, but I wish they had drawn more on the writings of Anne Catherine Emmerich. I mean, read the life and times of Jesus Christ or biblical revelations. Anne Catherine Emmerich, phenomenal. There's
powerful.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's good for mental imagery. So I mean, it's like, you want to do Christian artwork, dude, read that. I mean, read the lives of the saints in general, but Anne Catherine Emmerich, my favorite.
Beautiful, and I would even I would add to that, in addition, is the work of a little known mystic known as Luisa Picaretta, that her insights on the Passion of the Christ go very, very deep. So That way to connect that with art as well. But I shouldn't expect anything less. You being an artist.
You start thinking visually all the time. But yeah, and there's also I think Mary Agreda, City of God might have been it, but I think it was Mary Agreda was one of the others.
Wonderful. Yeah. Number 9. What do you want written on your tombstone besides your your name and date?
I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know. I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Just something to think about. Death is calling for all of us. Number 10. Who's your favorite saint?
Favorite what?
Favorite saint.
Oh, favorite saint, Joseph. I mean, okay. I mean, if obviously the Blessed Virgin Mary, we're not going to count, and Saint Joseph's even kind of hard to count because he's too much of a standard. I mean, you got the Holy Family, you can't beat that. But it's really funny. I've got several that I like a lot. Padre Pio's a phenomenal one, but I don't know. Having done all these statues, I have such an appreciation for so many different saints now that it's just like they're starting to all become my favorites.
Beautiful. And for those who are listening to this, the saints are not simply statues. They are real persons. They are more alive than us. And James, no offense to your pride, as great as his art can be, their glory that shines from the grace of God that comes from them is even more beautiful. And so James is capturing a little glimmer of that. And I think
the world we live in is like a facsimile of what's to come.
Amen. Number 11. If you were to be martyred, how would you like to go out?
I don't know. Arrows?
Sebastian-like. Excellent.
Right, exactly.
And number 12, why be Catholic?
I don't know. It's a pretty obvious one. I mean, it's the one true faith. I mean, you don't, as I tell both my parents, 500 years ago, everybody was Catholic. So
it's true.
What do you want to do with that? Jesus Christ founded the Catholic Church. That's why I'm Catholic. I mean, you've got different places that try to make similar claims or, we're offshoots of the same tree. No, you start changing the doctrine and you have private revelation or this or that. I mean, you can't, once you start changing things, you've got a different substance or you've got a different object or, as I said, as I think it was Thomas Aquinas or Aristotle, it said, look, if you make a statement with one false word, the whole it renders the entire statement false. If you have a glass of water with one drop of poison, you don't have a glass of water anymore. You got a glass of poison. So, no, you stay true to the doctrine as it was taught to us by Jesus Christ.
Amen. If you take one thread out, the entire piece comes undone, shall we say? Right.
Yep.
So there's a perfect tapestry, and it's the other thing that God has us as part of that tapestry. He's not done yet. He's working on things here. James Jasper, it's been an honor and a privilege to get to know you a little bit, to share a little bit of your work. And please head over to James's Facebook page. The link we'll put in the show notes. There is great beauty there, and I encourage you to go deep in there. James, is there any other better place for us to get to know you? How to get in touch with you if they want their house painted? Any best way for them to touch base with you? Your final thoughts here.
Facebook is fine. Yeah, Facebook works fine for me. There's Instant Messenger and WhatsApp or whatever, but Instant Messenger is fine. I mean, it doesn't. I'm not much into technology.
No problem. Well, wonderful. We're honored to have you here on the Redeemed Vision podcast. Honored to have your gifts and sharing those with the world. All the best to you, James. And we'll chat right after we get off online here. So hold on one second. And to all those who have joined us here for the Redeemed Vision podcast, we want to thank you again for coming here. I want to just, as a word of encouragement, how today can you enter deeper into beauty? How today can you bring beauty into the world? And if you have a gift for art, how can you grow that or water that seed a little more today so that you can manifest beauty in your life? Because we believe this is one of the ways we move forward. We help to heal the pornified culture and to be able to bring back others to life from the dead. So as as a final send-off here, I'm Steve Pokorny, the founder of Freedom Coaching. This is the Redeemed Vision podcast, and we will see you next time.
The Redeemed Vision podcast is an outreach of Freedom Coaching. To learn more, check out freedom-coaching.net and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and MeWe.